My husband gave his mother a key to my house, so I decided to visit them with police and a $10 million lawsuit. Mom just wanted to look, but the security camera caught everything. The first alert reached me during a licensing meeting. Someone had opened my side door with a key and entered the pantry where I kept company records. I called my husband, Nolan, before the second alert finished loading. Is someone at the house? He waited just long enough to make the answer heard. Mom just wanted to look for Grandma June's old recipe tin. She thinks you moved it by accident. Vivian has never lived in that house. Nothing in it belongs to her grandmother. She's my mother, Mara. She isn't a burglar. Behind me, the attorney reviewing my licensing offer stopped turning pages. I lowered my voice. Did you give her a key? Only for emergencies. The camera app went black. Side door offline. Pantry offline, kitchen offline. Nolan, tell her to leave. You're making this ugly for no reason. Then the line went dead. I ended the meeting and drove home. Vivian's white SUV was gone, but my brass key was still hanging inside the lock. On the kitchen counter sat the blue recipe tin my grandmother had left me. Its lid was crooked. The handwritten cards were there. Yet the slim black binder underneath them was missing. That binder held supplier prices, test batch notes, and the draft offer from Bellwether Foods, the company considering a national license for my allergy-aware baking mixes. It did not contain a finished formula, but it contained enough to tell a competitor exactly where I was going. Nolan arrived 20 minutes later and looked at the empty space beneath the cards. You keep too much sensitive stuff lying around, he said. Not, I'm sorry, not, I'll call her. He blamed the unlocked binder inside the locked pantry of my locked house. Ask your mother to return it. She said she didn't take anything. You already called her? His eyes moved toward the dead camera above the pantry door. She called me. That was the first crack. Vivian had supposedly gone in searching for a tin that was sitting in plain sight, but she had known I would notice the binder before I had even reached home. The house had belonged to my grandmother, June, who raised me after my parents died. When she became too sick to bake, I turned the carriage room into a licensed test kitchen. After Nolan and I married, he moved in, but the deed in the company stayed in my name, exactly as Grandma June had advised. Vivian treated that fact like a personal insult. She never shouted. She offered suggestions in a voice soft enough to make resistance sound rude. Put Nolan on the deed. Let his sister Paige manage my social media. Move my accounts to her bank. Every suggestion gave her family more access. Every time I declined, Nolan said I was keeping score. That night, I changed the locks and called the security company. The technician, a patient woman named Helen, checked the system remotely. The cameras were unplugged from the wall, she said. Whoever did it knew where the control hub was. Did I lose the recordings? The visible cameras stopped uploading, but your plan includes a battery backup unit. It may have stored footage locally. Don't touch it. I'll send someone tomorrow. Nolan stood in the doorway listening. You're seriously investigating my mother? Someone entered my workroom and a confidential binder disappeared. So now she's a corporate spy? He laughed once. Mara, you make pancake mix. I looked at the blue tin between us. For 6 years, he had watched me build that company from weekend markets into regional grocery stores. He knew Bellwether's offer could change our lives. Yet when he wanted to make me small, I made pancake mix. The next morning, Helen arrived with a security technician. Nolan had already left for work. The backup camera had been pulled from its bracket and placed face down on a shelf. Its memory card was gone. That isn't something a person does while looking for a recipe tin, Helen said. She gave me a signed report. There had been 7 minutes of motion before the system went offline. The video was corrupted, but her team might restore it. I did not accuse Vivian again. I sent one message to the family group chat. My confidential binder was removed yesterday. Please return it by Friday afternoon. No questions asked, Vivian replied with a prayer hands emoji. Paige wrote, this is why families should not do business together. Nolan came home angry that evening. You embarrassed Mom in front of everyone. I did not name her. Everybody knew who you meant. Then everybody knew who had been in my pantry. He slept in the guest room. Before dawn, I heard him moving downstairs. In the morning, the brass key was gone from the counter. 2 days later, Vivian invited us to the annual dinner for the River County Women in Business Council. I planned to refuse, but Bellwether's regional director would be there. And Vivian knew it. She called me personally. We cannot let a little misunderstanding damage your opportunity, she said. Wear something cheerful. People worry when a woman looks tense. She had entered my house, lost my binder, and now wanted me dressed as proof that nothing had happened. At the dinner, my name card did not say founder of June Table Foods. It said Nolan Reed's wife. Paige sat beside Vivian with a new logo folder and closed it when I reached for it. Vivian tapped her glass during the welcome remarks. Our family has exciting news. We are developing a new line of heritage baking products, and Paige will lead the launch. Applause moved around the table. I felt Nolan's hand land on my knee under the linen. Not here, he whispered. The Bellwether director, Cynthia Shaw, looked from Paige to me. She had spent the morning reviewing my heritage line. Is this connected to June Table? She asked. Vivian smiled before I could answer. Mara is wonderfully creative, but creativity needs adult supervision once real money is involved. Several women stared at their plates. I slid Nolan's hand off my knee. No, Paige's project has no connection to my company, my formulas, or my licensing proposal. Paige tilted her head. Ideas do not belong to one person just because she writes them in a binder. There it was. I had never told Paige the missing information was in a binder. Cynthia noticed too. Her expression changed, but she said nothing until we were near the courtroom. Protect your records, she told me quietly. Bellwether received an email this morning claiming your company was in an ownership dispute. Our review is paused until that is resolved. In the car, I asked Nolan who had contacted Bellwether. Maybe they did their own due diligence. They were told there was an ownership dispute. There isn't one. He gripped the wheel. I'm your husband. I helped you build this. You mocked it yesterday and someone in your family stole it. He pulled into our driveway. Mom was right. You would rather burn down your marriage than share credit. I got out without answering. The new lock accepted my code, but not his. He stared at the keypad. You locked me out? I removed every code after the key was copied. I sent your new code this morning. He checked his phone and found it. For 1 second, the story he wanted to tell about me did not fit the facts. Inside the blue tin was a new card rubbed with coffee to look old. It described a maple oat mix I had never made. In my grandmother's copied handwriting, someone had added, "For the Reed family." Who made this possible? The fake card was meant to manufacture a family claim. I sealed it in a plastic sleeve and called trade secret attorney Daniel Cho. He asked for dates, contracts, access logs, and the original cards. Do not post accusations, he said. Do not threaten them. Preserve everything and let them keep believing you are emotional instead of organized. So I became quiet. I told Nolan I wanted peace and would consider a partnership after the bellwether review. I secured my real formulas, then placed a replacement binder beneath the blue tin. It held harmless notes, a label with a deliberate punctuation error, and an invented supplier called Northfield Milling. No real orders could be placed from it. It was information that existed nowhere else. Nolan watched me return the tin to the pantry. You're finally being reasonable, he said. Reasonable meant accessible. Loving meant unguarded. A good wife in his family was a door that never locked. The next Sunday, Vivian hugged me in front of half the church and said, I knew you would come back to your senses. Some women confuse boundaries with importance. People heard her. People also saw me smile and hand her the casserole dish she had asked me to bring. I wondered if I was weak for not defending myself right there. If you have ever kept quiet because speaking too soon would only help the person hurting you, please leave a like so I know other women understand that kind of restraint. And if you think I should have confronted her then, you can say so in the comments. I asked myself the same thing all night. On Monday, Northfield Milling received a request through the email address Daniel had created. Paige wanted pricing for the maple oat formula and attached photographs of pages from my replacement binder. That was a stronger sign, but Daniel told me to wait. An email could be blamed on a hacked account. We needed a path from my house to their business. The next crack came from Chloe Bennett, my neighbor across the street. She knocked on my door holding a small padded envelope. This was delivered to me by mistake, she said. It has your address but Paige Reed's company name. Inside was a roll of printed labels for Reed and Root Heritage Mix. The ingredient panel copied my decoy notes, including the punctuation error. The manufacturer's proof sheet listed Vivian's Community Foundation as the billing contact. Chloe saw my face and lowered her voice. Vivian was here again Tuesday afternoon. Nolan let her in. I remember because she parked across my driveway and told me family owners didn't need permission. Would you write down exactly what you saw? I already did. My husband said I should stay out of it, but I watched you fix that carriage room with your own hands. This is wrong. The label company confirmed the order after Daniel sent a preservation letter. Vivian had paid with a foundation card, then changed the invoice to Paige's company. The theft now reached charity funds. Still, Nolan kept asking why I was distant. Mom is offering you distribution contacts, he said over dinner. Paige is building a brand that can carry both product lines. This could work if you stop treating every suggestion like an attack. I set my fork down. Did you let them into the pantry again? It's my home too. That was not my question. He rubbed his forehead. I wanted to prove there was nothing to hide. By giving them access to something I asked you to protect? You don't get to make me choose between my wife and my mother. You made that choice when I wasn't in the room. He left for Vivian's house and did not come back that night. The following week, Paige announced Reed and Root's debut at the State Growers Exposition. Her promotional photo showed the blue tin on a farmhouse table. Not my actual tin, but a copy aged to look like it. The caption called the mixes a Reed family tradition rescued from a forgotten kitchen. Women from church tagged me and asked why I had hidden Vivian's role. A local blogger wrote that my success made sense now that the real family story had emerged. Then Bellwether formally withdrew its offer. Cynthia called instead of hiding behind an email. We cannot license a product with disputed provenance. I am sorry, Mara. The offer was worth several $1,000,000. Losing it gave Daniel a clear measure of damage. That afternoon, Helen from the security company called. Our lab recovered the backup file, she said. You need to see this with your attorney. The video began with Vivian entering my pantry while Nolan held the door. Paige followed carrying an empty black tote. They did not search for the blue tin. Vivian pointed directly to it. Paige removed my binder and photographed each page. Nolan paced behind them. This is enough, he said on the recording. Mara will notice. Vivian did not look up. By the time she proves anything, Bellwether will think the formulas belong to all of us. You said we were only establishing my marital interest. Your interest is whatever I establish for you. Paige found the draft offer and whistled at the projected value. Vivian took it from her. Once the deal is blocked, she'll have to accept our distribution company. Then the house can secure the expansion loan. Nolan said, the house isn't hers to pledge after marriage, is it? Vivian gave him a cold little smile. A woman who refuses to share her home does not deserve to keep the life built around it. Then Paige lifted the camera from its bracket. Nolan reached toward her, but Vivian stopped him. If you want your wife to respect you, stop asking permission in your own house. The camera tipped toward the shelf, capturing the floor and their voices. It recorded Paige removing the memory card from the visible hub. It recorded Vivian dictating the false ownership email to Bellwether. And it recorded Nolan telling them my work schedule for the next month. It was a plan to block my contract, control my company, and use my home as collateral. I watched the file twice. On the second viewing, I stopped hoping Nolan had only been weak. Weakness can still open a door and hold it while someone takes what is yours. Daniel sent the footage to a financial crimes detective because the foundation card and proposed loan created questions beyond a private lawsuit. The detective, Rosa Alvarez, asked me not to contact the Reeds while she sought records. State food regulators also needed to know that Paige planned to sell a formula she had never tested. My decoy notes left out a stabilizing step. The mix was safe but would fail its shelf life claim. Reed & Root's label also falsely named my licensed kitchen. I could have posted the video and watched the internet tear them apart. Instead, Daniel filed a civil complaint seeking up to $10 million for trade secret theft, interference with contract, business fraud, and damages to my brand. The court temporarily barred them from selling anything using my records or my company's name. We did not serve it at their homes. At Thursday's Growers Exposition, Vivian gathered reporters, donors, church friends, and bellwether executives to watch Paige unveil the family legacy line. They had built their triumph in public, so Daniel brought the truth to the same room. I walked into the exhibition hall carrying Grandma June's real blue tin. Daniel was beside me. Detective Alvarez came with 2 uniformed officers and a state compliance inspector. A process server followed holding the lawsuit. Nolan saw us first. His face lost color. Mara, what are you doing? Ending the ownership dispute you helped invent. On the small stage, Vivian welcomed the crowd and gestured toward bags of maple oat mix stacked behind Paige. This recipe survived because our family protects what belongs to us. The inspector closed the display pending investigation of false production records. The process server handed Paige and Vivian the complaint. Vivian scanned the first page, then laughed for the audience. $10 million? This is a tantrum printed on legal paper. Daniel connected a tablet to the presentation screen with the organizer's permission. He did not play the whole security video. He showed the timestamp, Vivian pointing to the tin, Paige photographing the binder, and Nolan holding the pantry door. The final clip carried Vivian's own voice across the hall. Once the deal is blocked, she'll have to accept our distribution company. Then the house can secure the expansion loan. No one needed me to explain it. Cynthia from Bellwether stood near the front with both hands around her badge. A foundation donor took one step away from Vivian. The church blogger lowered her phone, then raised it again to record the official statements. Vivian turned on Nolan. Tell them you own half. Tell them she agreed. He looked at the screen, at me, and then at the floor. She never agreed. Detective Alvarez asked Vivian and Paige to accompany her to a private office. The officers were there to preserve evidence and prevent the disputed products from being removed. Vivian tried to walk toward the exit with the blue copy tin under her arm. The detective stopped her and opened it. Inside were foundation card receipts, label proofs, and the original missing binder. Paige began crying. Mom said this was a family restructuring. She said Mara would thank us after the Bellwether deal failed. Vivian's sweetness vanished. You had one useful job, Paige. That line ended whatever loyalty her daughter still had. Paige asked for her own attorney and started answering the detective's questions. Nolan came toward me, but Daniel moved between us. I didn't know she put the receipts in the tin, Nolan said. You knew why she needed the binder. I thought she was protecting my share. You did not have a share. There was nowhere left for the old argument to go. The deed and company were mine. The camera showed his choice. The fake recipe card had failed handwriting review. Bellwether did not restore the offer that day. Cynthia said trust required a new review, and for once I was grateful for caution. 3 months later, the company signed a smaller pilot agreement directly with me, with stronger protections Daniel had negotiated. Vivian pleaded guilty to misuse of foundation funds and attempted business fraud. She received home confinement, supervision, and a ban from managing charitable accounts. The foundation removed her name from its building. Paige surrendered every file, closed Reed & Root, and apologized through her attorney. I accepted my property, not the excuse. Nolan said his mother manipulated him. Yet he had carried the key, held the door, and given away my schedule. Being Vivian's loyal son mattered more than being a trustworthy husband. Our divorce was quiet. He had no claim to my premarital house or company, and the video left little to argue. His only request was the old brass key. It was the first key you gave me, he said in the mediator's office, and the first one you copied without asking. I kept it. Chloe became my first paid market coordinator. Cynthia introduced me to 2 stores that cared less about a perfect family legend and more about honest records. The lawsuit settled for less than its demand, but enough to cover lost business, legal costs, and security. It stated plainly that June Table's recipes, history, and brand belonged to me. On the first Saturday after the divorce became final, I baked alone in the carriage kitchen. I brought out Grandma June's blue tin and removed the false maple oat card from its evidence sleeve. I did not burn it. I placed it in a small file marked Things I Survived, because forgetting is not the same as healing. Then I slid the original cards back into the tin and locked the pantry. The new key was silver, cut only once, with a tiny blue thread tied through its round top. Outside, customers were beginning to gather for the morning market. Chloe lifted the front table into place, and someone laughed near the gate. I turned the key, felt the lock settle, and put it in my own pocket.